Hey everyone, welcome to the sky this month for April of 2025 at the Hamilton Amateur Astronomers monthly meeting. Unfortunately, it would seem as though I lied to all of you in the March article when I commented about how it seems the winter was done and the good spring weather is upon us. In the last couple weeks or so, we've gotten snowstorms, snowfalls, ice storms, hail, rain, thunderstorms, and everything imaginable that Mother Nature could throw at us. And as I'm recording this on the afternoon of the 10th, so that is yesterday, I'm looking outside and I'm seeing freezing rain from the bedroom window. So I guess the April showers are indeed hitting very hard this year. And sadly, I don't think we're going to see too many clear nights this April. But here's hoping with a little bit of luck we might get a few cloudless dark nights to get out there and enjoy all the wonderful sights that April and early May has to offer. So before we get into the monthly night sky tour using the Stellarium app, we'll go through some of the many images that were submitted to me this month as I expected, most of them of the eclipse that occurred on the morning of our last meeting in March. So to start off, my background image here is this wonderful, wonderful image submitted by Jeff Parsons. And this obviously is of the lunar eclipse. And Jeff says that before the eclipse night, the last time I stayed up all night was for university exams. I think it was really worth it. And this image here is about 80 images, or he said, out of about 80 images, I picked two that best represented the full eclipse. Each image was 3 seconds long, stacked and processed. The next day I went through the images to pick out the sequence that best showed the phases of the eclipse. I was blown away by being able to see the star background around the full moon during the eclipse. So cool. So I picked out the two best images and stacked. Stretch created the star and starless image, post-processed and recombined them into one image. It's a 5-second total exposure with a Skywatcher 72 ED refractor, a Canon T7i DSLR on an Alt-Az Go-To mount. And this is just a really, really fantastic image because you don't see that very often with that bright blood red moon that we're all familiar with, but with the wonderful stars in the background, the pinpoint stars creating a great contrast with it. So fantastic work, Jeff. This is capturing the images and in the post-processing came out to be just a stunning image, and I had to use that as my background for this month's presentation. Moving on to some more eclipse images. This one here is actually a time-lapse image from a new member, Ken Leadham. And Ken sent this in to me saying that he took out two of his smart scopes to one of his standard observing sites here in Ontario, and the weather conditions were near ideal with just a bit of haze towards the end. He said his C-Star S50 didn't really work out too well because the S50 relies on optically detecting the moon's disk to track the moon, and he says the C-Star lost track of the moon around totality, and he couldn't get it to find the moon again. So he gave up with that and tried to start taking snapshot images with his Celestron Origin for the rest of the eclipse. And attached here is the video that he edited with the results from his Origin. And the video is made up of 123 images that he shot with the Origin in snapshot mode with manual gain and exposure control. The gain was set to the minimum and exposure varied from 1 millisecond up to 1 second. And I think it turned out very, very well because we can see here this time lapse all the way from the beginning of the eclipse when the Earth's shadow doesn't even touch the moon until you can see it slowly start taking bites away from it. And then we get to that blood red totality and the wonderful, wonderful contrast between the lunar highlands and the lunar seas with that blood red covering the entire moon, and then on again as the shadow passes by and we come back to full moon. Fantastic time lapse there from Ken. I really appreciate you sending that in, and I think it turned out really, really well. Moving on to the next image, we have this compilation from Chris White. And he says, these are the photos I got of the eclipse. Most of them were taken about 20 minutes apart through his Canon T7i and shot through a Sigma 150 to 600 ISO 1000 f7. And it was on a standard camera tripod. And again, good time-lapse and compilation here from full moon with the shadow moving across until you reach totality and then coming back out again. Great, great compilation from this, or from Chris here. Thank you for sending this in as well. Another eclipse image, of course, lots of them. I know we were all out there taking shots as often as we could, taking many, many shots, and this one was another one. Last month I sent in one at the last minute from Chris Jabon. Here's another one that he sent me, and this was stacked from a time lapse I took in order to bring out more of the stars. The image was taken with a Nikon D5200 and a Rokinon 14mm lens, and this one is really cool because you can see right up there, there is the totally eclipsed moon up high in the sky with this nice, what looks like almost a wide field shot of all the stars around, and Chris's telescope down here, and the reflection of all the red lights that I'm sure he had blazing during the eclipse against the trees here. And that's a really cool image with the entire starscape, which you would see looking up during totality. Two more images that we have here. The first one, or both from Bob Christmas, but here's the first one. And he said multi-image montages from the lunar eclipse. The first one here were taken through his Tamron 300mm lens with his Canon 40D DSLR camera. And this one is beautiful as well. Really crisp here, really nice focus, and really nice contrast again between the lunar highlands, the lunar seas, with the eclipse during totality here. And then the second as well, from start of the eclipse all the way through totality to coming out of the eclipse. And this was 3 images taken with his C-Star S50. So as usual, wonderful images from Bob. Thank you as well for sending these in. Just great shots from everybody, and I love seeing all these pics being sent in because it shows indeed we are a very active club, and we have everybody out there, all of our members, whenever they can, seeing what they can, and really bringing the hobby to life. Next one we have here is another time-lapse from Paula Owen. And Paula sent in a slew of different shots for me. I'm going to put some in next month during the May meeting. But this one was obviously taken during the eclipse as well. Paula didn't send any information exactly, but I'm assuming this was probably through her C-Star as well. And there you have it. Again, another great time-lapse. I'll play that one more time as the eclipse begins all the way through totality. And that is really nice and really cool to see. Again, I just love the time-lapse videos taken, and they just really do show you what it's like to see the lunar eclipse, especially if you unfortunately missed it. And this last image that we have here is by Joanne Salchi, and she took this on her Samsung S23 cell phone. And I know Joanne sometimes says, oh, it's not that good a photo. Oh, no, Joanne, the photos are fantastic, because I know as well, someone who doesn't really have any DSLR, any camera, how tough it is to actually capture a really good image on a cell phone. And the cell phone camera technology and the camera quality these days is incredible. I have an S23 Ultra myself, and I know that it can definitely take really good shots, but it also takes a lot of skill and a lot of patience to set yourself up and to fidget with all the different settings on a cell phone to get that good shot. So here's a 7mm f2.4 1/100 ISO 320 shot that she took of the moon and Venus on March 1st. And again, this is a really nice picture because you can see right here the nice slim crescent moon and Venus up here behind the trees towards the horizon at twilight. And this is probably one of the harder times to take an image with your cell phone during twilight, to capture the bright contrast between the darkening sky and the moon and the bright planets. And it is really difficult on a cell phone to do it. Take some patience because you have to snap quite a few shots until you find that nice perfect one. And I think Joanne did a great job here with that one. Now before we move on to Stellarium and get into the monthly sky this month and the night sky tour, just want to talk really quickly here about Comet 2025 F2 Swan, which is the newest comet that was discovered in March of this year by the European Space Agency's SOHO spacecraft. And so this this comet was discovered on, it doesn't say the date that I'm reading here, the end of March it was discovered. And now it is moving through Pegasus in the early morning sky. It's not quite a naked eye comet yet, but they're projecting that as it reaches the sun around the 1st of May at the end of the month, it will be about magnitude 5 or so, which means that it'll be a naked eye object. Unfortunately, at that point, it'll be very close to the sun and more of a southern hemisphere object than a northern hemisphere. But over the next few nights, that is the 11th, the 12th, and the 13th, you should be able to see it from here in Hamilton. Right here I have, courtesy of Earth and Sky, because I couldn't figure out how to add this on Stellarium myself, but this image is via Eddie Irizarry, via Earth and Sky, which shows the path of this comet the next few nights. So moving quickly through this square of Pegasus here towards Andromeda, you can actually follow it the 8th, the 9th, the 10th, the 11th, which is tonight, and then the 12th, and then the 13th as it moves down towards the horizon here. And it's currently at about magnitude 7.5 to magnitude 8.5, depending on who you're talking to. But it is brightening as the month goes on, so it's definitely a binocular and for sure a telescope object. So if you want to come back to this video, or you want to fidget around with some of your different night sky softwares, again, I'm not the most technologically adept person. I couldn't figure out how to overlay this on Stellarium, but right here you can see the path that it'll take, and again, it's coming down towards Andromeda through the square of Pegasus. So you should be able to see it in the early morning hours. This is at about 5 or 4:30 in the morning or so, and Pegasus is coming down towards the eastern horizon with the sun coming up right behind it. So you have a pretty slim window of about 45 minutes to an hour before the sky gets too bright to pick it out. But with any luck, some clear skies, and again, not too much haze and not too much washout in the horizon, you should be able to pick it out, especially if you have a decently sized telescope. All you're going to do is just go around to this area, and you're going to do a little bit of scanning here and there, unless you've managed to find the exact position on one of your softwares, and taking an image or taking a look through your scope, you'll see something. My bad. Oh, going the wrong way here. You'll see something sort of like this. This image here was taken through, I believe this was a 12-inch telescope, so might not see something exactly like that, but at magnitude 7.5, you'll definitely see the greenish, hazy head of the comet here with the faint tail reaching out behind it. Again, don't expect something exactly like that, but in the fair size scope, I don't think it'll be a challenge for any of us to actually see it. So moving along to Stellarium, we'll open the app down here. As per usual, I have it set for Hamilton, Ontario, on the night of our meeting tonight, April 10th, 2025 at 10 p.m. And this is just as we'll be getting out of the meeting. So if it's a clear sky, you step outside, this is what you're going to see. So we'll start off by doing a quick naked eye night sky tour here. So looking towards the western horizon, we have all of our winter constellations now beginning to set for the season. Taurus and Orion dipping down towards the horizon, Canis Major, Gemini, Auriga. All of these winter objects are still visible for the first little portion of the night, but as the month progresses and as the night goes on each night, they'll sink lower and lower and lower. So the next few weeks are your last chance to do any winter object observing before they're gone until the fall. Moving up towards zenith, this month we have Ursa Major, very, very high up there in the sky, with Leo, Cancer, and Lynx circling around the zenith point, and all of the objects that I talked about in the previous couple months in my EH articles up here, all of the galaxies in Leo and all the galaxies in Ursa Major, and all of the star clusters over here towards Gemini, Cancer, and in this area of the sky are all very, very favorably placed right now to see in the best part of the sky. So if you're looking for a few galaxies to pick off and some really, really nice ones like M81, M82, M51, and the Leo trio, now is definitely the time to see it because they are placed as best as they will be for the year. And then moving down towards the eastern horizon with the constellations that are coming up, we have Virgo, Bootes, Hercules, Corona Borealis, and all of the early summer and late spring constellations with, again, as my article for this month mentioned, the many, many galaxies over here in the Virgo cluster rising to their best position of the year. And then, of course, you have the many globular clusters in Bootes and Hercules down here, and then more of the summer objects and the summer constellations rising up as the night progresses. So let's get towards after midnight here. 1 a.m. Then you have the summer constellations finally coming up against Cygnus, and then behind it will be Lyra and Aquila. And all of those summer Milky Way objects starting to become visible again in the early morning hours of the month. Our moon this month is at full on the 13th, last quarter on the 21st, and new moon on the 27th. There were a few close conjunctions with the moon earlier in the month, and there's a couple more coming up at the beginning of May, which I'll get to in a little bit. Now we'll move on to the planets for this month. So we'll start off, as always, with Mercury, which is now an early morning object. So we'll change the time here to, there we go, 6 a.m. And as you can see, tomorrow morning, Mercury is just rising as the sun comes up, along with Saturn underneath Venus there. But in the next week or so, it begins to turn back towards the sun. So Mercury, again, early morning object for the rest of the month, but it's going to be quite a challenge for you to pick out in the morning twilight. But right there with Venus and Saturn for the next few weeks of this month is going to make a really nice display in the early morning hours, because Venus, as the month progresses, actually moves higher and higher in the sky, as you can see, after, or rather before sunrise, and it's joined again with Saturn right here below it, and Mercury. So it's a trio of the three of them, and the moon does join them as well, as you can see right here. On the 25th in the morning, they're joined by a nice crescent moon. So those three planets kind of steal the show for this month when it comes to our planets, Venus, Saturn, and Mercury, as a nice early morning spectacle for you to get out there and to observe for the next couple of weeks. And it's a really nice showing. You'll have to get up nice and early. You have to make sure you have a nice lower eastern horizon here. But the three of them together are going to put on a nice display. So we will skip ahead to Jupiter, which is still, move back here, which is still visible for a couple hours after sunset in the western sky in Taurus. Although again, as the month progresses, it slowly begins to set more and more and more. However, you still do have opportunity to view Jupiter for the rest of the month. And I actually skipped over Mars, but we'll get to Mars right here. And Mars is still nice and high in the sky in Cancer, moving over towards Leo as the month progresses. And I'll center it on Mars here, and we'll move in a little bit tonight. Or rather, right now I have the night of the 24th on here, but we'll skip ahead. So this is at around 9 p.m. on the 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th, onwards and onwards. And you can see right here on the evening of the 3rd, Mars joined with the moon and M44, the Beehive cluster, right here in the heart of Cancer. So keep that in your calendars on the night of the 3rd. That is a really, really nice conjunction, and that's going to make a really, really great photo opportunity, because you have all three, the moon, Mars, and the cluster, all within a degree or so of each other right here in the heart of Cancer. And then the next night, although the moon moves on, Mars actually moves a little bit further into the cluster. So you'll get a really, really nice viewing opportunity and a really, really nice photographic opportunity, because the Beehive cluster is one of the better and brighter Messier objects, and certainly one of the best for binoculars and a low power telescope. And with Mars deep red color in there contrasting with the bluer stars in the cluster, it's going to make a very, very nice opportunity for viewing. So moving on from the planets, we will get to, actually I skipped by it, we're in May here, but on the night of the 22nd in April, we'll go back here. On the night of the 22nd is the peak of the Lyrid meteor shower. Of course, the Lyrid right here, you have the radiant point in the constellation Lyra, which means that all the meteors you'll be seeing can be traced back to this radiant point down here. The Lyrids are a fairly decent showing. If you have a dark sky, you may be able to see 20 to 30 per hour. And then on the night of the 6th and 7th of May, we have the Eta Aquariid meteor shower, which is another decent one. Again, the same thing, 20 to 30 per hour. and that is coming from a radiant point in Aquarius. So moving on to the deep sky objects for this month. In my EH article, I spoke about the many different galaxies that you can see over here in the Virgo supercluster and Markarian's chain. And of course, this is such a object-rich area of the sky. You can spend hours and hours just picking out, especially with the larger scope galaxies all the way down to magnitude 10, 11, and 12. And you can see dozens and dozens, if not maybe 100 of them, if you're really lucky from a dark sky site. But something I would like to focus on just a little bit here for tonight is the lesser known constellation that we kind of really skip over here, which is the constellation Draco. And Draco is right here, snaking around Ursa Minor and in through the Big Dipper and Ursa Major and all the way down here to Hercules. Now Draco, of course, is the dragon, and it is a fairly prominent constellation. You can see the head of the dragon down here. It's kind of hard to miss, but not really. You know, not the brightest stars, but definitely well defined, and a constellation that honestly doesn't get all too much attention. But because it is near the North Pole in the sky here in Polaris, Draco is, for the most part, well placed throughout the year. We can go through the months and you can see it rotating around the pole here. But in April and towards the end of May, or the beginning of May, it is in a fairly decent area of the sky. As the night goes on, we'll go to after midnight here, first few nights of May. And Draco has a few different interesting objects in it that you can pick out with a fair size scope. So we'll start off here with NGC 6543, which is right here, known as the Cat's Eye Nebula or the Sunflower Nebula. And this is a magnitude 8.10 planetary nebula, which is our nice, really small, compact planetary here, which might be difficult to pick out in a smaller scope, but with a bigger scope, it's definitely an object worth searching for and worth looking at, because again, it is a very interesting planetary nebula. Stellarium photo doesn't really do it justice, but on long exposure photographs through a large scope, it does indeed look like a cat's eye. And it's a really cool, you can actually see the sort of greenish color in a scope, and it's a really nice object to pick out and to try and add to your list of planetary nebulas or lesser known NGC objects that we quite often just skip over. Another object of note in Draco is NGC 4125, which is a magnitude 9.72 galaxy. Nothing on Stellarium here. Their images kind of depend on the magnitude of the object and their popularity. But NGC 4152 is an elliptical galaxy in Draco, and it's pretty close to the North Celestial Pole and Polaris, right back up here, in between the bowls of Ursa Minor and Ursa Major. And it is in an area which, again, this whole area of the sky is pretty packed with galaxies, but you can see all around here you have many different NGC galaxies, magnitude 13, magnitude 12. This is the brightest of the bunch, but for our big scope observers, it's another area to take a look through and see how many you can find and pick out, because it is packed with many different objects and many different interesting objects right in between the two bowls of the Big and the Little Dipper. And another object of note in Draco is NGC 5866. And NGC 5866 is a really nice galaxy, magnitude 9.9. So definitely not the brightest galaxy, but it is known as the Spindle Galaxy. And again, unfortunately, this pic does not do it justice, but it has a very bright galactic core because it's an edge-on spiral galaxy with a faint dust lane and the galactic arms running perpendicular through the core. Now, NGC 5866, the Fool's Gold Galaxy as it's known, is also M102, debatably, because Messier 102, the 102nd object on Charles Messier's list, is a rather ambiguous object. Nobody's exactly sure what he was referring to when he put this on his list. It was discovered by Pierre Méchain, which was one of Messier's contemporaries during the late 1700s, and he discovered this object, but retracted his discovery 2 years later, saying that he had actually just mistaken Messier 101 in Ursa Major for it. So the best guess that anyone can ascertain is that indeed they were talking about NGC 5866 here as M102. Again, nobody's certain exactly what object they were talking about when they added this to the list, but nonetheless, it is on most star atlases now listed as M102. And in a nice size scope like an 8 or 10 incher, it really does show that edge-on galaxy view. And it's one of my favorite galaxies too, because it's not the easiest to find. There aren't too many landmarks around it here in this area of the sky to try and find. So star hopping to it, if you're doing it fully manually, old school, old style as I like to do it, it's quite a challenge to find because at magnitude 10 it is pretty faint. But once you find it, you'll definitely notice it and you'll definitely enjoy taking a look. I love these edge-on galaxies. They're always my favorite because they always look slightly different. They always have slightly brighter or slightly dimmer cores. And sometimes, depending on the magnification, if you kick it up all the way, it fills up your whole field as you're trying to keep it centered. And they're really, really good challenge objects to look for. And again, in this area of sky, you also do have several other objects that you can find. The Splinter Galaxy, the Cat Scratch Galaxy, or the Knife Edge Galaxy. Another edge-on right here, and Stellarium has a nice better image of it here. 11.8 magnitude, so considerably fainter than M102, but still an object worth looking out for. And then, of course, you have the Pinwheel Galaxy, Messier 101, over here in Ursa Major, which is a very famous and very easy to find galaxy at magnitude 7.9. Again, with a big scope, this one's face-on, so you'll be able to see those spiral arms in the galaxy here. And it's surrounded by a few other fainter, but still attainable galaxies in this small little galaxy grouping here. So again, this area of the sky, Ursa Major to Ursa Minor to Draco, and in between Hercules. Lesser known, not focused on very often, but still quite a few different objects that you can find in here and you can add to your list, especially if you're looking for things that are quite a bit more difficult to find but rewarding nonetheless. And of course, don't forget, like I said in my article, galaxy hunting season all the way from Leo down here through to Libra and Virgo, and this whole area of the sky just packed with so many this month that there's really no shortage of objects to find. So if you're a telescope observer and a big deep sky observer, then you have your work cut out for you this month. And as I said in the event horizon, with any luck, you might be able to see 75 galaxies in this area of the sky alone. And if you expand your search to the whole western and southwestern sky here up towards zenith, you may very well be able to break up into 100 galaxies or so, all in one night. Of course, you'll need to stay up all night to do it. You'll need some clear skies and some dark skies and some big aperture, but it's worthwhile to do nonetheless. And it's almost like a mini Messier Marathon a few weeks after the official Messier Marathon. So for our galactic observers and our deep sky observers, this is your time to shine. Let me know how many you find. Let me know how successful you were. And then report back at the May meeting. And that is our sky this month for April of 2025. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you all again in May.